Oh my goodness. D-line's off, so we get the funky dad music. Let's get it going. Funky dad music in the house. Vogt, are you not feeling this or what? Are you? Oh, he's gone. I was wondering. He would be dancing. I know he would be feeling the beats. What's up, everybody? Welcome into the DNVR Nuggets podcast presented by DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app right over Jeff's head. Use promo code DNVR whenever you sign up. One way to make the Nuggets season more fun, bet on it. Although it also could make the season way worse. So be very weird. Be very weary. Today's show, we're going to talk about Nikola Jokic staying in Denver forever. He'll never leave us, and so he hints at very strongly just yesterday. And we're also going to try to make this season great again. Not the most fun season so far, but maybe these little tricks can make it better. To help me brainstorm some ideas, my old friend, former coworker over at Denver Stiffs, hosted the CSG podcast. It's Jeff Morton, one of the OGs in Denver Nuggets media blogging. What's happening, Jeff?
What's up, Ben? How are you?
Well, that was short. I'm good. You don't say much, Jeff, but when you do it short and to the point, I salute you for it. Vogt saw you were here and took off.
He did. There can only be one short person at a time in video, so I took up the space. That's all it was.
Only one short person at a time. You know who does not believe that? Tim Conley just keeps bringing in nothing but short guys. A full roster.
This is true. Tiny Kings. Oh, he's back.
Hey, Jeff. How are you, man?
I am fantastic. How are you?
I'm great. It's good to see you. Old boss, new boss. Everyone knows each other. We're all friends.
So, man, today I think will be a little bit light on analysis of these last two games, in large part because, look, the Nuggets smacked the heck out of the worst team in the NBA, the Houston Rockets, and then they lose a somewhat ridiculous, very frustrating / annoying game against the Dallas Mavericks, maybe an important one. This season is just how it is. It's up and down. I mean, you look at it, I don't know that like one game really leads you to the next one. It's just like a series of one-offs. This is like 82 one-game tournaments that the Nuggets are playing, and after each one, you're just like, okay, well, that's over. Let's move on to the next one. And that's where we're at. Jeff, just off the top, did you have, though, any thoughts that you wanted to impart on us on the Nuggets' just recent play? Like this no Monte, no Michael Malone stretch?
Well, it just much like everyone else in the NBA, everyone's in the same boat, but particularly for the Nuggets without Jamal and Mike, it's just a year of survival, and that makes the year a slog. So you go one game to the next, it's like where the Nuggets were stuck in that one win, one loss, one win, one loss pattern. And that really basically is the way I look at it. It's probably going to be the pattern for this year. So the loss last night just didn't bother me at all. I kind of expected it. It's just the way you got to take these this year.
Yeah. So you mentioned win streak, man. And we'll get into that. I guess I'm going to table it because that is one of the things that's missing from the Jokic era. Win streaks, long extended win streaks. And I would love to have them. Maybe that's part of the trick here. But I actually want to start, Jeff, because you were – I'm not going to say trolling, but you were semi-trolling people last night when Jokic made his comments. You were about admiring Dirk and wanting to stay in Denver. You're like, oh, what? You guys didn't think he was staying? Come on, everybody. I mean, let me play the clip. Before I get to it, I'm going to play the clip, but then I'm going to ask you why you were so confident about this. And by the way, this video is choppy. This video from Nuggets PR, so it just came out choppy. But I'm going to play after the game yesterday. The most interesting part of the game was Nikola Jokic's post-game commentary. Here we go.
Hey, Joker. Dirk Nowitzki's getting his jersey retired in a couple of days. Obviously, I know you grew up watching him. What is some of your one of your favorite memories of him playing in the league?
He's kind of one of the few guys that was playing for the one team in the whole career, and he won the title, he won a ring, and I really admire him, and just because of that, because he didn't kind of quit, he didn't abandon the team, so I really admire that.
So he goes on after that part to talk about he admires his scoring and his unique this and this or that, talk about his play style. But obviously that was the part that made headlines. To me, this was Like, I was sad about that game for 20 minutes. But when I saw that quote, I was like, oh, sweet. You know what? I'm in a great mood. Because honestly, for me, that might be, says as much about the season as it does about the quote, but that might be the highlight of the season for me. You know, we haven't talked much about it because I think it can be annoying when you live constantly in the future, what's happening next summer, like who do we add? I like to try to stay more present than that. But I would be lying if I didn't say it was nice to hear Jokic almost paint himself into a corner saying like, hey, I admire guys who are loyal and stay with their own team. It's almost like he's positioning himself to not be able to leave Denver. Jeff, what did you think when you saw that quote?
Well, I did get some blowback from my tweet, and it was primarily because I was surprised that people were thinking he was going to leave. It wasn't a situation where I was like trying to actively troll people. I was just surprised that it was out there because like I didn't cross my mind, and it was surprising to me that it crossed other people's minds. That's the point I was making. And
why did
it just
cross your mind? I mean, this is 2022. Everybody leaves except for like 3 guys.
It never struck me as something that was in his personality. I mean, a couple of years ago, after Arturas Karnisovas left for Chicago, I asked a couple of people I know in the league about it. I said, like, man, there's a big Serbian population
right
in Chicago, and maybe that's a big factor. And the person kind of chuckled a little bit and told me, Chicago is not Sombor. And I was like, oh, yeah. So all that put into my head was like, Jokic considers his time in the USA a job. His home is Sombor. And I don't think the factors of lifestyle and all that stuff or being around a bunch of Serbians who happen to live in Chicago, I don't think that enters his mind. I think he thinks of this as a commitment and a job. You know? So.
Gotcha. Vogt. Have you been as confident as Jeff that this is the case with Jokic all along, or was last night, kind of a nice little reassurance of something you hoped but didn't really necessarily know?
No, I'm with Jeff, and in fact, I blame you for manifesting any other thought. You personally, Adam.
I haven't. Hey, this is the first time I've ever talked about it. I've never said anything like this. I've been very conscious of not wanting to be this out. This to be out there.
There have been 3 Jokic to Chicago conversations in my life, and you started all of them. But I will also say, no, because he said similar stuff about Tim Duncan too, and I was actually in a room when he said on record that winning a championship in Denver would mean more to him than winning otherwise because of that, because of the battles with the teammates, collectively striving towards a goal and accomplishing it together. Now, to your point, Adam, we have heard this before and seen actions to the contrary. I just don't really know if Jokic is that kind of guy. Maybe something changes and his motivations genuinely do shift, but I think he's speaking from a place of, I don't know if this is a guy that wants to restart, not just the process with a team, but assimilating to a city, organization, culture, so on and so forth.
Yeah, I think all of those things are right. And your point about it's not Sombor, like Chicago's a big city, it's a big market, whatever. But honestly, the Chicago thing is just like convenience. It was more just about, do you fear look, Denver, I think, has put a nice situation around him. I think they've treated him incredibly well. I think the fan base has really accepted him, especially even early on. I think that the team has given him a nice roster. It's just unlucky. I mean, the Nuggets should be title contending right now and maybe even favorites, and it's just unlucky right now. So you always get that in your head, like, oh no, is he sick of the bad luck or this or that? But to me, the one thing I will say, 2 things. Jokic is really present. I think it's actually one of his more underrated personality characteristics is I don't think he lives in the future or the past very much. He's just kind of like, oh, I don't dwell on my mistakes in the past, or I'm not looking forward to what my legacy is. He's just like, yeah, this is the challenge I have, and I'm going to approach today. And I think it's a real big strength of his. The guy who I think most embodied this, tell me if you agree with this, Jeff, because this is a take. We haven't talked about this. Okay. When I was watching The Last Dance during the pandemic, when everybody was watching it, that was one of the things that struck me about Michael Jordan, was that he seemed to be a guy that was like hyper focused on the present.
Right.
Not really thinking about even like his own legacy or this or that, just like a guy that seemed to enjoy like the world second by second. And I think that in sports, it's actually a really valuable trait to have, somebody that's always right now, just their brain is right now.
The Nuggets, and it's a tip to Tim Connolly, have really actively sought out guys who want to be part of a basketball operation. Right. And there's so much more with American sports. There's so much more. When you grow up here, there's a big consideration that's not necessarily for people who are from outside the situation that you grew up in. And one thing I immediately noticed about Nikola Jokic as he started getting more popular and more famous is the way he looks at life is very much, this is something I do. Right. And I have my horses in Sombor. Right. I've got all this stuff that keeps me what I really want to be doing, what I like doing. I'm really good at basketball and I like doing this, but my grounding is in Sombor. And the only thing I've ever told people is that the only thing, Nikola Jokic, the only fear that I have is that eventually he'll just get sick of being in the NBA. And that's the only thing.
Right. And retire or just go back. Yeah.
It's not going to another team. It's just that he's like, I've done all I can and I'm going to go back to Sombor and just live the quiet life. Yeah.
That being said, though, Jeff, don't you feel like that's more? And actually, I'll ask you this, Vogt, because I think that's true, too. Like, I don't know that he's going to be doing the LeBron James, 37 years old, only eating carrot juice and, you know, whatever. I have a feeling like, but I also don't think he's like close to retirement. I do think that he sort of enjoys this portion of his life or what have you. It's just that he's not going to be a guy that tries to hang around and for an extra bunch of years. Would you kind of agree with that, Vogt?
Yeah, I don't think, I mean, didn't he say as much in the interview as well, the most recent interview as well, that he's not a guy who wants to be playing well past his prime?
Right. Yeah.
I think you're absolutely right that he's a present guy. I really do. Look, it's a limited context in which we get to know these guys, but
totally
these answers have added up to, I think, what paints a picture of someone who does a very good job of dealing with what's in front of him. Which I think is highlighted by TJ McBride once asked Jokic a great question about what motivates him. And Jokic wasn't really sure how to answer it. It was neither winning nor losing. And I don't think he does much looking back or looking forward.
So true, man.
The puzzle in front of him, the challenge in front of him, I think there's a lot for Jokic to chew on in the moment. And so I think that's enough. And in fact, I would bet that when he does the grander reflection is where the room for some of the, this is a circus, it's a little exhausting, that's where it starts to creep in. But I think when he's on the court, it's just, you know, there's only one thing to do, and that's play basketball and play it well.
I take this comment too. It's funny because it's just like, it's so great to hear, like, but I also take it as not maybe a deliberate shot at like a LeBron James and Anthony Davis or all of the many, you know, Kevin Durant, all of the many superstars of the last decade who have gone the other route where it's like, let's just chase this or that. But I do find it in stark contrast. And we talk about athletes being present or people being present. I think LeBron James is the least present athlete I've ever seen in my life. Like, he's constantly thinking about, what does this mean for me? Like 50 years, what will people say about me or this or that? He even has on his own show, this is like 5 years ago, where he's reflecting on the 2016 championship. And he says, that was the game that made me the GOAT or whatever. Like, he's in his prime playing basketball, thinking about where he now fits along the 55-year history of the NBA. So I almost feel like this is in, as much as he's saying, like, I admire Dirk, you know, Giannis obviously fits in that category. I feel like he's also the reverse saying this as in, I don't necessarily admire or even value this idea of like, you just go wherever it's easiest to get a championship. Do you take it that way at all, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, there's no better essay on it that people are going to laugh at this, but I think the best description of Nikola Jokic ever came from the most unlikely source, and that was Michael Porter Jr. and his description of him on JJ Redick's podcast, where he talked about how he doesn't, you know, his description of him is like Mason Plumlee was doing better than him when saw him and all that stuff.
This is like a bottom 5 Michael Porter like thing.
Yeah.
If I had to rank the things about it, that would be a bottom 5 one. You thought Plumlee was better. Even for 1 hour, yeah. You had that take is like too long to have had.
But then he shifted. He made an interesting shift. He didn't go into talent. He didn't go into skill or anything like that. He said it never gets rattled because it's the same pulse all the time. Well, when you got someone like that, their motivations aren't necessarily what say, Michael Porter Jr.'s motivations of basketball are. Someone who's grown up in the AAU circuit and who looks at the world completely differently, as we know. But someone who, like Jokic, who, like, his motivations, you could tell his biggest care is not necessarily right in front of him playing basketball. And guys like that tend to be the guys that don't get rattled at the end of games. Those are the guys who are like, it's just a game. The pulse of the game is not affecting me in any way, shape, or form. That was the best description of it. So guys like that aren't necessarily motivated by moving to another city and, quote, getting a championship. The challenge of getting a championship at the place they're at is probably a lot more appealing that rather than just flying off to LA and joining up with another super team.
Right. Do you feel, Vogt, like there's any level of Jokic that's like, can you read any disdain from that quote into the many guys in the NBA that don't feel that way? You're muted. You're muted there, Vogt.
Am I unmuted? I'll stop short of saying disdained, actually. I think there's a lot of admiration. And it's because I think as best we can understand, it's about the process for Jokic. And so there's a reward in the continual climb and the harder route and just this aspect of, like, it's a team thing. And every day and every year you come with shared goals in mind. And if as a group you can move closer to this goal, I just think he personally gets a lot out of that part of it. And that, of course, exists in abundance in the harder path, sticking around. So I don't know if it's disdain, but I definitely think it's admiration. The fact that he's tabbed now Tim Duncan and Dirk as two guys for this reason, it's very clearly something he values. And look, there's nothing more reassuring for a Nuggets fan to hear.
I think you're right that it's not disdain. What I would say, it's a lack of admiration, I almost feel. And here's what I mean by that. I see a headline the other day, like I get promoted post, and it was like, Devin Booker is not solely focused on being the best basketball player. He also wants to be the best investor. And, like, that's fine. That's an admirable thing or whatever. But I feel like if you took that to Jokic and said, hey, Nikola, do you admire Devin Booker's investment strategies? He'd be like, what? No, like, I don't care about that at all. And I think it's the same, honestly, for this whole idea of, the championship for the pursuit of championship. I really do think Nikola views it. Like, he had a great quote earlier this year, maybe it was earlier this week, where he talked about, like, I don't know what our goals are, for this season. I just want to go out and be the best I can be, like, right now, given the circumstances. And I feel like that's actually the best goal a person can have, not just in sports, but really in life, when it's not necessarily we need to achieve this specific thing. It's just, how can we be the best version of ourselves while we're here? And I feel like he just has a natural or developed perspective that he taps into on that front.
Well, it's the little goals that keep you grounded and the little goals that keep you present. And if you're looking a lot far into the future, maybe you can do both. I mean, I got to say, LeBron James is the only person basketball player I've ever been able to see who saw both, the big picture and the small picture. And Jokic is very much a small picture guy, which is why the MVP was kind of like, at the time he's like, yeah, but this is just an award. It's not something that motivates him. It's not something that drives him. Right. And those guys are, like, great to build around because they will always be focused on what's best for the team. It's the foundation of all foundations. And that's what makes us so fortunate in Denver to see this. And it's a good thing that we can watch this even in a season where they're struggling.
And I also think Miroslav made a good point in the comments up there earlier, which is that Denver's always going to be able to pay Jokic the most. Yeah. And this is not a guy who's necessarily taking advantage of other markets, right, to sell or push products, at least in the domestic market, as Miroslav pointed out just there. So I think that's the more practical element to this, which is, the biggest factor for most guys staying. So I do think, like, I actually think there's little reason to worry, but I also recognize that'll always be a little bit naive to say out loud in the NBA. Things just crumble how they do.
I'm curious, though, we've had a decade and a half. I mean, 2010 was the LeBron decision, and so we're now 12 years into sort of this era. But I do wonder, we got Damian Lillard being the high profile. I mean, he doesn't pass up an opportunity to remind you guys that he's about this staying loyal. We'll see if that plays out. You've got Giannis, who won a championship last year. You got Dirk, who has one. And I do feel like there is starting to be this, a small sect of players who speak out saying, hey, that's actually the coolest thing you could do. Like one of those is worth 3 or 4 of these other ones. And I wonder, do you think, Jeff, that this is maybe a trend that we're going to start seeing? Like it starts to swing back the other way where players say, it's not about stacking rings. It's about the type of ring you get and how you do it.
I think so. Mostly because the NBA has done the hardest it can to make leaving as financially onerous as possible. And when the players started saying, okay,
right,
that it doesn't matter, it's just millions of dollars, they started going. But I think the culture became different.
Right.
And I think the NBA is about that one, always about that one star who stays, influences everyone else.
Right.
One of the reasons so many people leaving all the time en masse, particularly stars, was because LeBron did it. And everyone follows that guy. But more people are coming in saying, like, I'm okay with this. I'm okay with staying in Portland. I'm okay with staying in Denver. And the more people do that, the guys who are, say, in Minnesota or, say, Milwaukee with Giannis, they'll be like, this is just perfectly fine for me. This is where I can still achieve my goal. And more people will see that and begin to stay.
It's another way. It's a different path to being immortalized, right?
Totally.
It's the way it worked out for Dirk and even Giannis, right? Just immediately, I say even because Giannis might win more, but let's say he doesn't.
Right.
It still just took that one.
Yep.
And that was the switch, right? The sliding doors moment. Is he a fraud or is he one of the all-time greats? And we've all made up our mind it's the latter now. And Dirk maybe is almost placed on a higher pedestal because he got just that one, the way he got it. I don't know. I mean, I do think we're going to see some guy. John Morant, I think, has already said some similar stuff about wanting to stick around. I do think we're going to see the pendulum swing a little bit in this other direction.
Well, here's a couple more on these. The real best example of this is Steph Curry. Now, Steph, like Kobe, had the perfect setup. He went to a large market that happened to have a great culture and team around him. So he benefited from all of this, but he is maybe more than anyone, the guy that is going to walk away from this era as the golden boy. I mean, he's universally loved. He's treated differently when he goes, like LeBron. For a while, there was this kind of draw where everybody showed up 20 minutes early to watch him, jog and do whatever. But Steph Curry has surpassed, in my opinion, even LeBron's height in terms of the hype when he goes to Ball Arena, like how people show out. And I will say this, LeBron did start this, but here's where I think things have flipped. Shaq left Orlando. He goes to the Lakers and he won and he became Shaq. He became one of the 15 greatest players ever. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar won in Milwaukee, but he's known as a Laker. Like this is how he's known. So I think we actually had a 20 to maybe 30-year run of that working. And now LeBron has lifted the veil a little bit where it's no longer like sly. It's now like overt. And I think now it's starting to swing back the other direction. So with Jokic, I definitely think he could enter the Dirk conversation. If you get a ring in Denver, it just like one Nuggets championship to me is like 10 Lakers ones just in terms of how hard they are to get. So if he got one, I just feel like he would be in the Dirk category where he's immortalized. Let's take a break. On the other side, let's try to fun up this season. We're going to inject ourselves with fun juice until we start having fun.
We love our Breckenridge Brewery here at DNVR. That's the official beer of DNVR, but we want to push those seltzer on you as well, those lemonades. A lot of good stuff from Breckenridge Brewery, including food. The farmhouse is open, socially distanced. You can grab some outside dining there. It's set
some
up
outside dining. It sounds great.
What'd I say?
Outside dining. It sounds great. 15 degrees.
Right now, right?
It's blustery out there. Blustery.
If for one of many reasons you are more comfortable at home right now, you can still order curbside pickup from 12 to 8 p.m. Get beer delivered on the Drizzly app or head to your nearest grocery store. Call 303-803-1380 from 12 to 8 p.m. for pickup. Use code DNVR to save $5. Check out the Mile High City Copper Lager. That's your Denver Nuggets themed beer. It goes down real good when the Denver Nuggets are playing real good. If you don't know how to find it, check out the Breck Beer Locator. And while we are on the topic of the Denver Nuggets, as you have noticed by now, undoubtedly, it is no longer Pepsi Center. It is Ball Arena, and we are also partnered with Ball. because people are what make ball special. People come from every level to work each day and give 100% to accomplish their goals. Their production techs are the front line. They know that. They want you to feel special. They know great people are what makes a great company, and they're looking for more great people right now. You can text Golden to 77222, and you'll get linked to open positions. You can also go directly to jobs.ball.com and search for Golden. That's jobs.ball.com and search for Golden, or simply text Golden to 77222.
All right, back here, segment 2 of the DNVR Nuggets podcast. I got Jeff Morton with me. I got Brendan Vogt, and now we're going to fun up this season. But first, I have to share my favorite tweet from yesterday. You guys want to see my favorite tweet? Nope, not that one. We moved on. I'm sharing this one. This is, first of all,
special.
Guys like us, Jeff, I have the entire collection of The Far Side in my house. Actually, is it over here? No, it's not. I've got it's like 50,000 different cartoons. But I love this one. The Bluebird of Happiness, long absent from his life. Ned is visited by the chicken of depression. Honestly, perfectly encapsulates the Nuggets season. You're right. We are all being visited by the chicken of depression right now.
You know what it is? I think we have the last couple of years have been so weird. We've gone from denial to kind of this weird sort of acceptance period. And I think we're transitioning into it. That's where I am, because it's been fun, but this year's just Struggle City, and it's hard to watch Struggle City have the success. So that's why, I mean, you scan Twitter and people are just rending their clothing and rolling in ashes and screaming at the sky over the Nuggets, and it sucks, man.
Do you guys watch Memphis at all this year and go, I missed that?
Dude,
you're young, no expectations, Every wind has found money in the pocket. You can't wait to watch every night.
Yeah, I'm 100% Jack Black in the stands this year. Every time I watch a fun team, I'm just I'm watching the Warriors and I'm just having fun, but not allowing myself to embrace it. Just so mad, because you're right. Memphis is definitely the Nuggets of a year ago or 2 years ago. They're just so fun. They play so connected. Every quote from Memphis right now is, we're building a culture. And you're just I wish we were building a culture right now.
Why do you think I'm so obsessed with the team of my youth, the 94 Nuggets? That was the epitome of what Memphis is. It was a team that just oh man, the youth and we got to the playoffs and we did that big upset, all that stuff. And people love it. They just love it. And it's the next level that is the most angsty. It's the most angsty. And that's where we're at right now. It's that middle ground before we hopefully get really good.
Did I say Jack Black? I think the other day when I was trying to say Jack Black, I said Jack White. For some reason, they're in my head. I have these two guys completely switched.
Two completely different people. You cannot find more.
Jack White, definitely Jack White, grumpy in the crowd. But yeah, the 90s Knicks or the 90s Nuggets for sure. They were more like Memphis in that they were kind of edgier. Denver on their when they were on the rise, this Jokic version, they were more fun, but less maybe edgy or this or that. So I could see it. One thing I'll say though, Jeff, I know this hasn't, like you said, your era was then. You also love the 80s. I know that the Jokic era, you've been a little bit you've liked it, but it hasn't been your favorite. But now you get to contrast it to a down Jokic here. Have you been having fun with this one? And does it in any way make you appreciate the last 3 years? When you're kind of reminded of what it's like when things aren't going great.
I will tell you what happened to me, and this is something that's some self-analysis I did, but this is absolutely true. Going through the Brian Shaw era ruined me, and it made me not be able to appreciate anything because it was so horrible. And it took me a while to come on board because I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I just got the cynicism got baked into me. Yeah. I do appreciate more what I saw in the past, and that's kind of a pattern with me. I tend to, in hindsight, appreciate things a lot more than I do in the present. But this year, I'm a little more zen about it than most people because I understand. It's just, to me, it's like the cycle of a team. And even though there's a bunch of, it's a bunch of injuries and stuff like that, and it's generally what's going to happen in COVID, and everyone's in a pile of suck this year in the NBA. So at this point, it's just like, why rail against it? Because everyone is in a weird place, and this is a weird year. Might as well just look at it and say, yeah, they're going to be kind of meh this year, and it's just it. If you rail against it, you're just going to end up miserable all the time.
I'll tell you what, Vogt. I always talk to one of my good friends, Mort, follows the Cavs. He's a Cavs fan. He used to blog about them, doesn't anymore. He always talks about how 2016 was the most miserable season he's ever followed, and then they won the title, and it was awesome. But he's like, yeah, like when you have expectations, every minor failure or setback feels like a major one. Like, oh my God, this is our chance, and we're blowing it. And I think talk about being present. That's part of the experience, I think, of this year is it's like you're constantly thinking about how does the Dallas loss play into the broader story? And it's like, we don't know. We have no way of knowing anything outside of what happens right now. So why worry about how this season ends or what it means if it ends poorly, and just be like, well, hopefully we get a cool game on Wednesday. Something cool happens.
I think in the NBA community, we can't just collect data. We always have to draw conclusions, right? Nothing can just be a data point. It is now what you have learned. And yeah, I mean, I think the constant juxtaposition with what this season could and one might say should be versus what it's been so far is what's particularly painful. And, there's a lot of like, they're wasting Jokic's prime, or like this team isn't good enough. And it's like, man, that's not the team they built, and the reason this stinks is because they built a team that was good enough and we may just not get to see it. So
on a scale of 1 to 10, Vogt, how fun has this season been so far?
Man, I don't like, I actually try to be generally optimistic about the Nuggets. I haven't had a hard time enjoying it. I really have. I mean, that Dallas game was like, I'll always enjoy sitting down to watch Jokic play. But it's so hard to detach yourself from that juxtaposition of what it could be right now. Right. And as a result, it's just like a season full of acid reflux, Yeah.
Jeff, 1 to 10, how would you grade this season?
Oh, a solid 5.
Yeah, 5.
It's right. Me. This is a very 5 year. I mean, the record is a 5. The vibes are a 5. Everything is a 5. You can't, and that's what's frustrating. I know this is exactly that's frustrating people. I think people would accept this more if the Nuggets were worse. I really do. If they were worse right now, people would be like, "Oh well, screw it, the injuries." But they're just okay enough for people to be like,
Maybe. Hey, you're actually talking me into something here, Jeff. Maybe what happens is the Nuggets are bad for like 4 or 5 games, and then when they win 3 in a row, we're like, "Hell yeah, we're back!" Whereas they just won 3 in a row, and we didn't appreciate it. It's like we gotta eat our vegetables and enjoy it. All right, well, let's talk about some ways to make this season more fun. I'm going to throw one at you guys here. Mike Singer had an article today about Bol and how he's got a lot of people in his corner in behind the scenes at Ball Arena. One of those is Michael Malone, which cracks me up because the only guy who can determine whether or not he plays is Michael Malone. So I read this one and I kind of go like, hold on, what? Michael Malone is Bull's biggest advocate, yet he doesn't play except for when Michael Malone's gone that he plays. So part of me wonders like a little bit of this. It feels like, the trade deadline's a month away. Let's start talking about what a great guy all of our players are. But nonetheless, I will say the best part of the last 2 games to me has been Bol and how good he looked and how fun he's been. To me, Bol playing more minutes or just playing any minutes and like getting to see him instantly makes this season a lot more enjoyable. And by the way, we might get it at least for 1 game if these guys, Zeke Naji, Jeff Green, don't come back from COVID protocols.
Yeah, I think it's especially after that Houston game, that was a nice feel from that. And then he didn't play as much yesterday, but I would love to see more Bol because it's kind of like team also seeing more Bol too. So you could tell that they get kind of amped up about it as well.
Vote Bol. Is that the shot in the arm the season needs?
It's all right. It's tough because on one hand, I know that everyone is just done with this conversation of like Bol is kind of like the kombucha girl tea gif where she's like, and I think everyone's getting tired of not like throwing their head back and forth, and no one's holding their breath. However, there was something to him in those 6 Dallas minutes in the game before that felt a little bubble-esque in that like we're in desperate search of vibes, man. And I do think when he plays well, there is a feeling of excitement beyond just like, oh, maybe they'll survive this 5-minute stretch. Like I haven't changed my perspective on the likeliness of him blossoming, but it's undeniable that Bull playing well is fun, and him playing well alongside Jokic. I mean, we're desperate for anything. I'll take that morsel right now for sure.
I mean, honestly, here's the thing about the Bull like excitement is I really just can't envision a world in which he's back with the Nuggets next year. So what you're hoping for is do we get 4 weeks basically between now, I don't know what it is, 5 weeks before the trade deadline where he starts playing with Jokic, and we just have this like 5-week run where it's like, hey, we remember that was fun. And then he got traded. So it's like, to me, but that would be fun. Like, again, we talk about if you're in purgatory, you might as well have something weird, happening. And Bull Jokic, the connection they've had was so weird, and it would be so great to see, even if it's only temporary. So I'm with it. To me, Bull would automatically inject a lot of fun into it. How likely is this to happen, Jeff? Let's say he plays against Utah, Nuggets win, and he plays great. Then everybody comes back. Jeff Green, Zeke Naji. Is he still in the rotation?
No. No. Despite the, I would say, retroactive claiming of support by the coach, I would say that the chances of him usurping guys that are more trust guys is very slim. But it now's his opportunity, so you never know. Yeah.
The next one I have here, this is an obvious one, a Bones Hyland breakout. You want to talk about Bones Hyland's season has so perfectly mimicked the Nuggets. It's been good, it's been bad, it's stopped. It's been good, it's been bad, it's stopped. It's been good, it's been bad. Like, we just can't get any traction. But that is one thing that would stabilize this season, is if we saw over the next 5-6 weeks, just he plays every game and he's a little bit better each game. And honestly, the funnest part of the season might have been that like 6-game stretch where he kept setting career highs. So Bones Hyland, where does this rank Vogt on the fun scale of things that could happen?
Number one. I haven't forgotten. Yeah, I think the vibes were, well, I mean, look, I don't know how we're playing this game. Title would be sick, but the way people were talking about Bones, it was like, my God, Tim Connolly's done it again, right? Not just, oh, this kid's kind of good. Like, oh, this kid is exciting. This kid could be special. Yeah. And we may get back to that, by the way. So to me, that's one that is a perfect combo of on the table and would feel great. Something, again, like, it's one thing when the Nuggets just survive a bench sit, but we're talking about stuff that make you go, ooh, I can't wait to watch the next Nuggets game, right? And I think Bones balling out is way up there for me, if not number one.
I need him to make some threes, Jeff, because right now I see Miroslav says if he goes 7 for 7 from three, and I'm just like, I almost can't picture it.
I know.
I think he brings the excitement that a great guy, a 6-man do. You need a 6-man to have the vibes, and he's got the vibes. And that's why he's something to look forward to, because he's a guy that is always up, is always happy. And more than how he's playing, you just need a guy who's going to be like that on your roster just in general. I mean, the talent aside, you need a guy who's going to keep you up, and hopefully he does.
Does a team need just one vibes guy? Is that like a one role? You just need the one vibes guy, or do you think there's like multiple vibes guys?
I don't know. If there's multiple vibes guys, would it be like 2 positive batteries or something like that? It's just
we're overloaded on vibes. The circuit's now inverted. Oh crap. We gotta get rid of one of our vibes guys.
I'm trying to think if there's an example of that team happening. I feel like there's a good example of that somewhere.
There's too many good vibes. These 2 players are disrupting the team because they're repelling each other. And we need them to get one guy on the team.
Let's hit our last break. On the other side, I've got Jokic breakout. I've got a couple like trades. I've got the Lakers falling apart. And I've got one other one that's my personal number one thing that could happen for my vibes this season. But first, let's hit our final break.
And with that, the top way to make this Nugget season more fun, hit up Lightshade Dispensary, get 25% off each purchase, not a one-time purchase.
That is
Each
the number one way.
You could shop online or you could visit a Lightshade location near you. They've got 10, soon to be 11 locations. And while we're talking Lightshade, we want to talk to you about the Escape Artist products that you can find in any Lightshade dispensary. That's the highest awarded topical brand in Colorado. Ratio is available in 1-to-1, 20-to-1, 800-to-800 in case you're a psychopath. But yeah, no matter what you're looking for, if it's THC related, get it at Lightshade and get 25% off when you use code DNVR. That's it. It's a one read second break Tuesday.
Unbelievable. You guys getting off here nice and easy. Back here, final segment. I got Jeff Morton, the host of the Colorado Sports Guys, aka CSG podcast. I've also got Brendan Vogt. I think one of the reasons we're at a bit of a low point this season, for me personally, maybe you guys disagree, Jokic is in a little bit of a, I don't want to say slump because he's still playing well, but we haven't had a Jokic game for a while. And I think that a Jokic takeover, like a winning player of the month in January, if Jokic were to win player of the month in January, he was that good. To me, instant vibes boost. Like, oh yeah, that's right. And there were moments this season we've had that where it's like Jokic was so otherworldly that didn't matter how bad the rest of the team was. Right. I just don't feel like we've had that the last 2 weeks or so. And to me, that's the easiest injection of vibes.
Big Jokic game. We need him to go. I need him to do. I've been wanting this for a while. I need him to do 30 points, 20 rebounds, 15 assists. I just fill up that stat sheet like no one's business. Just get it out there, and that will be like the greatest uplifter of this team because nationally everyone will be talking about the Nuggets again, and and that's his power. So yeah, Jokic having a Jokic game would be a great way to get the vibes going on this year.
I'm totally Jack White again vote when I'm looking at Joel Embiid winning player of the month in December. Like it's another one where I'm just kind of sitting here like, it's terrible. But what do you think? Player of the month or just a player of the month caliber stretch?
Yeah, I mean, that would be great. And what's funny is how far away it feels now. I think there is a threshold where it gets harder and harder for Jokic to be that guy, not be great, not be built around. Like it's one thing to miss the star players, but then when there's no Monte as well, like they need to get him the ball first or be able to run some pick and rolls or at least feint some other threat. And so for me to feel like it's going to happen again anytime soon. But what if it didn't? I mean,
that's my point is like, what if Jokic discovers a new way of where he's like, I don't need anybody.
Right. Well, then we get back to where we were in the first 20 games of this season where we're going, this looks awful. We're still kind of not ready to rule them out because Jokic looks this good. And so, yeah, man, another reminder game would go a long way for sure.
2 years ago, the 2019-20 season, the one that ended up getting canceled. But before it did, if you remember, Jokic's first month of the season, not that great, but he had 3 game winners. So like, it makes me think the Nuggets could play the exact same way they had, but if we had a stretch of game winners again, like Jokic game winners, it'd be like, hell yeah, we suck all game, but Jokic is just going to, if it's within 2 points, he's going to win it. That could be one. How about this one, guys? A big trade. And when I say a big trade, I'll say a smallish medium trade. What if there was a Torrey Craig back in Denver type trade or a Gary Harris or something like this, a reuniting old flames? Would that give a shot in the arm?
Yeah, I think.
Or is this like when your life's out of control and you call your ex? Is that what happens? This is what I'm going for.
Yes.
Oh, the happiest person in the planet would be Michael Malone. Like if Tim only wins, Michael Malone says, "We're going to get Torrey Craig again." Malone would just explode with glee over that, and then we would have a year of. Did I fade out?
No, you're there.
I'm back. Okay, good. You have another year of Torrey Craig playing over Michael Porter Jr. So I don't know if we want that. But it would be. I don't know. I mean, you guys have probably done more analysis on this than I have. Is there a legit trade they could actually do with the assets they got? I mean, I've been racking my brain, and I don't know.
I mean, there's always a trade. Like, here's the thing I will say. there have been things where we all talk to people within the organization. They've all been like, okay, all quiet on the Western Front. Then all of a sudden something crazy happens and you're like, oh, wow, I did not expect that to happen. So it's always possible that Denver does make a big shakeup that we just don't see. And maybe that would inject the season with fun. It just seems like if there was a big trade, if you found out like Wojbomb, Barton's traded, Monte Morris is traded, and they're bringing in a big player, like I think all of our first collective sense would not necessarily be like, awesome, something different. It'd be more like, oh boy, this is weird. The weird season just got weirder. Might be good, might be bad. We don't know.
Yeah, it would also be, it would feel a little bit like chasing too. I mean, chasing what got away from this U for reasons that had little to do with roster construction. And so, I mean, I know the back end of the roster isn't perfect, but no one's back end is going to look very good under these circumstances. So
mine does.
What'd you say?
Mine does.
By the way, wind off the top rope. I was trying to think of former Nuggets that might come back. Like Juancho, cheapest option.
Yeah, because he needs a team to play on. Yeah, for sure. I don't know. I lost my train of thought. Can you imagine though if they called up Orlando and they were like, all right, Zeke Naji for Gary Harris. There could be something special here. Let's help each other out.
Man, it would be RJ Hampton, probably.
RJ Hampton. I think, look, man, Juancho coming back, this is never going to happen. Juancho being traded, like you trade Marcus Howard for Juancho or something. You get Juancho back, and he actually makes an impact, has a game-winning 3 or something, vibes immediately back to 100. That's what Juancho brings. He is a vibes guy.
That's true.
But it's the positive ions thing again. I don't know if we can have that.
I don't think you get overdose on the positive Jokic Juancho vibes. Here's another one, you guys. This is where I'm at with this season. This is one among my top ones, not my number one. The Lakers completely falling apart would save the season for me, like catastrophically falling apart. I'm not talking about injuries, but just they go on like a 10-game losing streak with everyone healthy. It doesn't matter. All of a sudden, I forget about the Nuggets season, and I'm like, you know what? Doing better than them.
I think that would be great, and it has been great to watch them be less than mid, like the Nuggets are 5, they're 3, and I think that it's been actually great to see. The Russell Westbrook thing has been absolutely exactly as it was been predicted. I mean, if followed just like I love it when a plan like that comes into a view that not necessarily the team, but the people who have been talking that this is a terrible idea, and it plays out exactly like that, and it happens to the Lakers. Just chef's kiss.
Plus, one of the benefits of the whole Denver thing is you're never the main character. Now, sometimes for worse, but in this scenario, it's for better. Because if the Lakers fall apart, that's the only thing anyone will ever talk about. And every sin the Nuggets committed will be forgiven and overlooked. So that's fun.
It's so true. It's so true. Another one I have here, and this is actually before I get to my top one, just a simple winning streak. Number one, a winning streak would save the season. But I'm telling you, I don't think the people that have followed the Nuggets during just this generation, I don't think people realize how fun a winning streak is. And I mean like a 10-gamer at least. Because once you get to about 5-6 games, you start to get a little excitement. Once you get to 8, 9, 10 games, which the Nuggets have not had, by the way, in this era, that's when you just feel invincible. And you start, every game becomes a party, and you're just getting so hyped for it. And I think that's what the Nuggets need. Like, they just had a little 3-game winning streak. It didn't necessarily feel like it because it was so short. But I think if they were able to get 7, 8 or more games going in a row, to me, it would single-handedly vault the season back up out of purgatory.
What's the longest streak they've been on in the Jokic era?
I think it's 7 or 8. I can't remember what it was, but it's not that long.
Yeah. I think I'm trying to remember that. The streak that had the most positive vibes that I remember was the end of the 2018 season.
Yep.
When they won, what was it, 5 in a row or something like that?
5 or 6. It was close to their longest streak, yeah.
And one of those was Jamal beating Milwaukee with 3 free throws at the end.
Right.
Which is one of the most insane games I've ever seen. But
those are the things that happen in a winning streak, though. We're like, you win like 5 games comfortably, and then that 6-1 you steal, and it's like, hey, the streak's alive. Let's keep it going.
Mm-hmm. Oh no, I agree with you, Adam. I do.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. not only would the vibes be great, it's also just look at the West, man. Like if you win 8 games in a row one time, that could be enough to vault you out of that pack. And depending on how they play as well around you. And then just as to Jeff's earlier point, just to get off the GD roller coaster for a second, or seesaw. It's not even a roller coaster. It's just back and forth and back.
Yeah.
And just to trend in one direction for a couple of weeks would be beautiful. So I'm with you, man. I think that would be a perspective changer in which all of a sudden everyone breathes and go, okay, all things considered, not that bad, you know?
Yeah, totally. 1 winning streak, Nuggets. Give it 6-game homestand, win all of them. That would be a good start. My last one here, and then I'll see if you guys have any others here. My last one, the ball is popping. If the ball gets popping. And part of this, adjacent to this exact thing, is one of the things that's been frustrating about the Nuggets over the last 3 seasons, really, bubble outside of that, is that I don't feel like the Nuggets have consistently had an identity to the degree that teams like Golden State, Phoenix, even to a lesser extent Utah, like some of these teams just have an identity and you're like, that's who they are. That's the style. We got to go and play that style. With the Nuggets, if they could get back to that ball is popping style where they make getting dunks and wide open threes and everything looks funny. You talk about streaks. The Nuggets rarely go on 10-0 runs. But that's part of it is when you have your identity, you get into a groove and you go on these 10-0 runs once or twice a game. So if the Nuggets found a way to get the ball popping and further solidified their identity, to me, that would be, even if the record was what it was, to me, I'd be like, at least we know who we are and we just got to improve on that. And I just don't even feel like the Nuggets are there right now.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too, because the ball was kind of popping against Houston, right? And a lot of that has to do with the Houston sucks.
Yeah.
But Facu behind the back passes. And I think actually going into that, Facu and his trickeration plays a lot into how the vibes are with this team and how things improve. When he's doing that and it's like, yeah, he gets turnovers, but everyone's loving it. That plays into the whole balls popping thing because it kind of facilitates that with certain units and stuff like that. So, yeah, I agree. And I think I don't know how they can facilitate that necessarily without, Jamal and, Monte and all that stuff out there. But I think they can get to an approximation of it. And maybe that'll lead to your previous point, Adam. Maybe they'll go on a streak.
Right. Yeah, maybe. Vote.
Yeah, and I mean, look, just some consistency in the lineups, I really think is the biggest thing to that. Like, there were stretches where Monte plus Barton plus AG plus Jokic, and Jeff, actually, who does a good job as a connector piece in those possessions, they did get some of that going. It does seem like any time either unit or this team as a whole seems to get a little bit of a rhythm going, they just get chopped down at the knees by COVID protocols or Vlaco or whatever. It's just everything has to go in flux. So I do think with Monte there, closer to this version of full strength, it can happen. I don't know if it's going to happen with Facu and Rivers, but we'll see.
Yeah. Jeff, do you have any other ideas for injecting fun this season?
Well, from a fan perspective, I advocate drinking games. So every I drink wine, so it's hard to do drinking games with wine. But say like if you have your whiskey of choice, I'm sure DNVR has one of the varietals that they're happy to talk about. But say like Mike Malone does a rage timeout shot. I got like if you've seen Airplane, I've got a drinking. No, and there's ways you can make this fun participating in. Count the number of times that they would dribble handoff and reset and do another dribble handoff and then reset and do another dribble handoff. That you could do that and do a shot. It'll make it fun for you. And then by the time halftime comes, you'll be so drunk that you won't be able to pay attention to the rest of the game, and that'll keep your vibes up until you find out the results the next day. That's what I would say.
And you know what else could work, Jeff? And I have this, I think, somewhere blocked out for roughly March. Jamal Murray coming back to the Denver Nuggets.
Oh yeah, there.
I will never and watch me do it immediately now that I say this, but I will never take him for granted again. And what a role he plays and what goes well for this team when it's going well.
Yeah. I mean, he definitely could be the biggest like vibes boost, but I don't know the Nuggets can wait for that long. Like,
we would like some vibes in the interim. Yeah.
Do either of you guys have any other ideas for a little?
Bring back the short shorts. Yeah,
the short shorts. Yeah.
That'll change the vibes.
That definitely change the vibes.
Actually, in a really serious way, I think going back to what you said earlier about Bowl, I saw against Houston, I saw the team absolutely stand up and just enjoy every aspect of him playing well. And I think they need another guy like that out there. Maybe not necessarily, but another guy that they can all just stand up and cheer for. Because it seems like when they have some guy like Popeye, when you saw in the locker room after they're dumping the water on him. Honestly, they have a guy like that to kind of compete for and do something for special. I think they all kind of rally behind that, and it really lifts the vibes in too.
You got anything else, Vogt?
No, I think that's a good one. Convert Elitch's into a stable. Earnest suggestion. Outside of that, I got nothing.
Yeah, Jokic, I like him saying, I admire Dirk for staying, but I wouldn't mind him saying, like, I'll always be a Denver Nugget. Like, just erase all doubt. Just be like, you know what? I plan to stay here for 10 more years, and I can't wait for that.
Right. No,
and I'm coming on the DNVR show to announce that. I'd be like, wow, what a great little sequence of words there.
Convenient event.
Wow. Very convenient. Well, Jeff, thank you so much, man, for coming on.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
I feel like we solved all of the Nuggets' problems, and we can expect our checks in the mail from the Cronkies to get the Nuggets rolling again. But that does it, guys. You can check him out over the Colorado Sports Guys podcast. He does he reviews 70s rock, grunge, horror movies, as well as the latest and greatest from Denver sports.
Yes, I'm a man of many talents, and I don't mean many, I mean many. So
Jesus.
Your dad energy is like, and honestly, we're right here with dad energy. That was a great dad joke.
Wow.
So anyway, yeah, but I do that. But I do have two top podcasts. That's CSG, and then I have the Gen X show. And the Gen X show is where I review all the old person shit.
So there you go. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Don't forget to hit that like button on the way out. Leave a rating and review. We don't have any ratings or reviews on the podcast in 2022. So that means you, listener, could be the first one to review it in 2022, giving you that that honorary distinction. Everybody else, we'll see you tomorrow for the pregame show. Nuggets Jazz. We'll see you guys tomorrow.